Hey, what's up? It's Joe, also known as Matsu and I think it's time that we talk about switches and splitters. That sounds like birds and the bees. Let's keep going. If you haven't checked out my video about using an HDMI splitter for your streams, check out the video up in the corner here. But today, I actually want to go more in depth about the HDMI splitter versus what a lot of people keep asking me about in comments, and that's the HDMI switch. In order to understand the difference between each, we really should talk about an HDMI splitter versus an HDMI switch. Then we could talk about the scenarios and the cases where you might use one or both or all of them. Sound good? All right, let's go. This is an HDMI switch, and the purpose of this device is to have two different sources go into one monitor. And you have the ability to physically, with the touch of a button, switch between which one's active and which one's not. Now, the limitations are the fact that you can only have one source go into the monitor at one time. You can't have two sources going and splitting the screen. That's not how this works. The price range usually goes between $10 to up to $60, but the exchange for that price is better quality, better features. Another thing about the switch is that it is bi-directional, meaning you could actually go plug in one way or plug in the other way, and it's still going to function. Now, you could essentially use this as a splitter with one device to do different monitors, but you can't have both video feeds going out at the same time. It's only one or the other. This is an HDMI splitter. And when it comes to splitters, we have a little bit of a harder time finding 2.1 HDMI devices. But a lot of them are limited to 4K 60. So it's definitely, the cost goes up when you're looking for something potential for 120. And some of the trade-offs are you may not get as the highest fidelity or quality or even the refresh rate, but there's a lot of perks to a splitter. Now, splitters are typically unidirectional, meaning that you can only have one source going to two different monitors at the same time. You can't actually run it backwards where you can have two different inputs going out into one monitor. It won't work like that. Another thing too is that a lot of people confuse thinking that, oh, this splitter will allow me to do dual desktop. No, a splitter only mimics one video source and puts it out into two different screens. It replicates it. It doesn't actually separate it out. So that's definitely a common misconception about a splitter and how it works. Now, if you own a newer capture card like an Elgato 60X or 60S, you'll essentially have what's called bypass out. And capture cards like those essentially are splitters in themselves, and allows you to route your video feed to your PC through the capture built-in system, and then also out to your device, which is actually pretty cool. But there's a limitation to that. If there's no power to that capture card, then it's not going to go out that bypass. So that's kind of where a splitter itself has a little bit more of an advantage. Of course, you can't capture with a splitter, but we're going to solve that. So now that you know the differences between each a splitter and a switch, how do I use them? Right? That's part of what you're asking. So let's actually talk about, there's two case scenarios in which you're going to be set up, right? You're going to be like a dual PC streamer, or maybe you have two different consoles, or a console and a PC, and then you're going to have those who just have the one. Now, I'm going to leave in the description timestamps for those who are just using one console setups versus those who are using potentially multiple console setups. So you can skip between, whichever one makes sense for you. But if you want to watch it all, it helps the algorithm, it helps me out. So I appreciate it. Here's how I would set this up. I'm going to take my splitter. So here's my two outputs, my one input. I'm going to plug in monitor A into one and monitor B into the other one. Then I take the cable that's going to go to my source, put it into the input, and plug this into my Xbox, which is sitting over here. It's a common misconception with a splitter that I could run dual screens and have two separate screens. No, a splitter, all it does, it takes your video and duplicates it between your screens. So whether you have a 2 splitter or a 4 splitter, all it does is take your one source and put it to the two. Now, so I can see our game, you can see there's no real latency or anything like that. So this is typically where I say if you're going to use a splitter, you could pair this off with a capture card going into your PC or Mac, right? That way, you could run one of these to play your game and one of these to capture your game through OBS. Now, a lot of times people will have a capture card similar to like this, right? So this is the Elgato 60S. Plus, you could also have the 60X, or you could buy like something like this. This is the EVGA XR1 Lite. What these have is both a video in and a source out. So what it does is it allows you to essentially act like a splitter with a digital splitter. So what happens is you get the one version that goes through USB to your capture device, like your PC or your Mac, and then the other one goes to your screen. Now, the one problem with these is the fact that you need power in order to run them. If you don't have power in your device, then the bypass doesn't work. That's what you usually hear as far as like a HDMI bypass. If you don't have one of these, and you only have like, you're looking at capture on the cheap, that's when I say you get a capture card like this, and then you could go ahead and get a splitter. These two things combined equate to something like this. There are times though where you want to use this HDMI switch. Now, what's the difference between a switch and the splitter? That's going to be how the output goes. So now, if I go like this, the way this should work is the HDMI, so here's from the Xbox, it's going to go in, and depending on which one I'm using, you'll see the screen switch. Now I can see my Xbox. So what it does is it switches between what device is receiving the signal. Now you're probably wondering, why would I use an HDMI switch? Typically, something like this. So right now I'm using this the same way to splitter, 1 in to 2 out. The difference between these two is the fact that one, this is unidirectional. You can't have two sources go in into one monitor. But this one, you can either have it two sources into one monitor or one source into two monitors. So I can switch if I'm playing on a smaller screen or playing on a bigger screen, right? I have that ability where I could switch that screen depending on where I want to go. There we go. If you're like me and you have multiple game systems and you want to play them all, let's say I'm playing Xbox, yay, cool, right? I want to switch, and now I can play my Nintendo Switch. So something like this would be for someone who has multiple consoles. So if you have one console, you're going to most likely want to get a splitter. That way you can send your signal to multiple places at once, whether you're to your TV to play the game, and then also to your PC to capture it. If you have two consoles, then I recommend starting off with the Switch, because this will allow you to send your signal, whichever device you want to play, to here, and then physically switch between what's going to your device. You're probably going to wonder, okay, cool, so I want my setup to be leave it or forget it. I only want to be able to push a button when I want to switch games. So yes, you could run multiple capture cards, but that's going to be expensive, right? Whereas I could go ahead and instead, you take this, and I need one more HDMI cord, so you will need a lot of these. But check this out. I'm going to instead plug in the switch now to my splitter, and then plug in each monitor. So imagine this monitor was your computer with OBS, and you had a capture card. Now with all of this combined, I could switch between two consoles and two monitors. So now with the combination of a switch and a splitter, I could run this line A to my monitor so I could play without any latency whatsoever, and I could run that second line to my PC and capture it. So if there's latency or anything like that, it's already dealt with. I don't have to worry about the latency when I'm playing the game. That's the cool part. Then you could capture this with either go into your capture card of choice. So that's where I would recommend someone who has multiple consoles and you want to really have your setup leave and forget it, bust out a switch on top of a splitter. If you're a single console person, that's where I say you'll probably just need a splitter. That's it. But if you're a multiple console person like me, a splitter plus the switch is going to really get this done. Okay, that was a lot of technical stuff, and my head kind of hurts. Does yours? No, but for reals, hopefully this guy will help you better understand the purpose of each, and also the cases and scenarios that cover how you're going to use it with your system. So if you did find this helpful, please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm. It helps other people who are searching for content like this to find it. Also, it makes me feel special. Also, if you can, in the comments, leave your experiences or what you've gone through, or maybe the different devices you found that I didn't cover today. I'd love to hear about your setups. And as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like this content and you want to see more. Hit that little bell button because then you'll get notified when I post this good stuff. Otherwise, I'm Joe. Thanks for hanging out. And as always, I'll catch you next time. Peace.